first of your two largest mental energy leaks is created by your reaction to an event or to someone else's actions, words, or deeds. So something happens, or someone says or does something, your emotions get triggered, and then you immediately and fully energetically engage with them. A little thing happens and you energetically engage. A big thing happens and you energetically engage. And whenever you engage, you immediately start hemorrhaging your energy out, reactively, reflexively, habitually, compulsively, unconsciously. And engagement can be you actually having an argument with someone, or it can be you writing a furious email to someone, or it can be you not actually saying anything to someone in the moment, but instead you're saying it to them inside your head. Having an argument with someone in your head is still full energetic engagement. Take some time today to think about when you energetically engage to this degree, and think about what triggers you to energetically engage to this degree. To plug a reaction leak, you will need to practice energetic detachment. Now, energetic detachment is different than emotional detachment. We can't really detach from our emotions. We are emotional beings, and when something happens or someone says something or does something, we are going to feel the emotional hit. But you absolutely can learn how to energetically detach in that moment or shortly thereafter. Or, better still, to energetically hang back and watch them do their dance and not engage at all. At first, you might start with just a new awareness. So someone says something to anger you, and you engage, and then you say to yourself, oh, look, here I am, fully energetically attached. And maybe you might even be able to detach enough to create a little energetic buffer zone. The next time a trigger comes along, you might be able to stop yourself short of full attachment, and thus leak a little less energy than the time before. And the next time, it might be a little less, and the next time, a little less. With practice, you can get yourself to the point where you can hang back here with an open mind and an open heart and watch an event happen, or hear someone say something to you and realize that their fit has nothing really to do with you much at all. They are coming at you like this based on the thoughts that they're thinking. Their emotions are being directed at you, but they don't really have anything to do with you. Even if you said something or did something that inadvertently triggered them, their boss could have yelled at them earlier in the day, and then when you walk in the room asking if there's any calls, they start yelling at you. But their yelling fit really has nothing to do with you. Because even though you walking in the room may have triggered it, you know you didn't do anything to intentionally provoke it. And that is a very important distinction. If your intent was not to provoke them, then there's no reason to give their emotional outburst much, if any, of your energy. You can decide that you don't need to use your energy to defend yourself. You can decide that you don't need to use your energy to manage their feelings. You can decide that you don't need to use your energy to try to change their opinion. And you can decide that you don't need to use your energy reenacting and speculating with your friends about what the hell just happened. Here's the deal. Other people's nuttiness is usually not about you. It's caused by the thoughts they are thinking. And likewise, your nuttiness is usually not the fault of other people. It's caused by the thoughts you are thinking. Does it suck that your life is sometimes affected by crazy events and nutty people? Of course it does. But you still get to choose whether or not to turn it into a giant energy leak. Energetic detachment is about noticing when something or someone has pushed your button or triggered a feeling and being able to make a conscious choice about how much of your energy you're going to give that situation or person and for how long. Now, a question that usually comes up around this point is, but what if someone says something or does something and my gut tells me that I need to say something about this, or I need to speak up in defense of someone who isn't able to speak up for themselves or who's too afraid to speak up for themselves? Here's my answer. It is totally your right to speak up whenever you feel called to do so. Even in the last example I gave, where you walk into the office and ask your coworker a question and they start yelling at you, you can speak up, you can explain yourself, you can defend yourself, you can defend someone else. But there is a way to do that while conserving your energy, while remaining energetically detached. Let me remind you again that we are talking about energetic detachment, not emotional detachment. Your energy is separate from your emotions. Getting emotional, a lot or even a little, when you're confronting someone is totally normal. You might raise your voice, you might cry, you might tremble, but even if you get emotional in the moment, there is still a way, for the most part, to remain energetically detached from them. How do you do that? You do that by releasing any attachment you have to changing that person's mind or behavior. You likely can't change their mind, no matter how hard you try. I mean, after all, how hard is it to get someone to change your mind when you're all riled up and on the attack? Trying to change someone's thoughts or behavior in a moment when they are not at all open to or interested in changing their mind means that you have fully energetically engaged and are using up a ton of your energy. I totally understand that you wish they would see the error of their ways and apologize and say that you were right and they were wrong. But what are the odds of that happening, especially in a moment when their minds and hearts are not open to changing? Is trying to force them to change or apologize really worth all that precious energy? If you want to say something because it feels to you like the right thing to do, then speak up and let the act of doing that make you feel good. So speak up and express yourself or defend yourself or protest something from an energetically empowered place, which means letting go of any attachments you have to changing the other person in the heat of the moment. To recap, one of your biggest mental energy leaks is created by your reactions to events and people. The first step to plugging a reaction leak is to cultivate the ability to notice when you've been triggered. The second step is to detach yourself energetically as soon as you can, or stand back and don't attach at all, so that you can make a conscious choice of how much energy, if any, you want to give the situation. Now let's take a look at the second of your biggest mental energy leaks. This one is created by your resistance to reality, or your resistance to what is or what your current circumstances are. If it is raining outside and you find yourself thinking it shouldn't be raining right now, you are leaking away your energy, resisting the reality of what is actually happening. If your girlfriend broke up with you and you find yourself thinking, especially months later, why did she break up with me? Why? You are leaking away your energy, resisting the reality of what actually happened. If your boss is an idiot and you find yourself thinking over and over, I can't believe my boss is such an idiot, you are leaking away your energy, resisting the reality of who you have for a boss right now. Let me remind you again that your emotions are separate from your energy. So feeling your emotions is different than leaking your energy. There will be times when life throws you a severe curveball that hits really hard and has a lasting sting. You will have to grieve losses and probably suffer betrayals. There will be times when you feel frustrated or deeply sad or truly scared. The way to feel such extreme emotions without turning them into huge energy leaks is to not resist them. Allow yourself to feel and process your emotions. And that's not always a one and done process. Grief usually comes in unexpected waves for a while. And anger can have intermittent flare-ups until it finally wanes. Emotions are fluid. And if you allow yourself to experience them without resisting them, they will pass through you. Resisting emotions, and that includes suppressing, denying, or numbing them, that's what eats up vast quantities of your energy. And that is energy you no longer have to put towards anything else. There is a big difference between taking time to heal and process your emotions and wallowing in your emotions. Wallowing in your emotions is you actively keeping those emotions alive inside you for some sort of conscious or unconscious payoff. Wallowing in your emotions is a big fat energy leak because wallowing in your emotions is caused by you dwelling on a thought. So to plug a resistance to reality leak or a resistance to your emotions leak, you will have to learn how to examine your thoughts. In the live coaching sessions of this Mindset Reset program, you will learn some tools that will help you examine your thoughts so you can get better and better at dissolving your resistance. But what you need to know right now is that examining your thoughts requires mental flexibility. I promise you, it's the people who have flexible minds who are able to identify and plug their energy leaks the quickest, and thus they're able to make smoother shifts and accomplish bigger goals. Mental flexibility is an incredible strength to have. Energetic detachment is an incredible strength to have. And the entire Mindset Reset coaching program is designed to help you develop these two strengths. So what do I mean by mental flexibility? My definition of mental flexibility is the ability to consider events and other people's actions and reactions from different perspectives so that you can find some common ground. So what's so special about seeing things from different perspectives? Well, usually when something happens to you, you choose to see it from one perspective, and that becomes your perspective. And it's based on your thoughts and your feelings in the moment, stuff that's happened to you in the past, and any deep unconscious knots you might have in your psyche. And as humans, when something happens to us, we almost instantaneously choose a perspective, grab on to that perspective, start dwelling on that perspective, and then calcify that perspective. That's the way we see it, and we're not budging. The problem is, sometimes your perspective does not empower you. In fact, it does the opposite. Sometimes it puts you in a victim position. Someone is doing something to you. Someone is forcing you to do something. Someone is holding you back. Someone is making you feel a certain way. Someone is blocking your path. Someone is not giving you what you want. In this particular moment or situation, you are deciding that they hold power over you and you are powerless or less than them. In other words, you are choosing to identify yourself as a victim. A side note before we continue. I want to acknowledge that some of you watching this have legitimately been victimized at some time or times in your life. And if that's the case for you, I don't want to minimize that fact. There is, however, an important distinction between having been victimized in your past and continuing to identify yourself in the current present moment as a victim, as someone who is currently in a position of powerlessness to someone or something else. For some of you, having been victimized is a totally true fact of your personal history. That said, I believe that if you identify yourself currently and actively as a victim in any area of your life, you cannot live as a fully empowered person. And part of becoming an adult is becoming fully empowered, especially if you want to experience your full potential, especially if you want to have the most meaningful impact you can in this life. Thoughts that actively and currently place you as a victim are huge energy leaks. And these victim thoughts can be so tiny and so insidious. You get stuck in traffic. Why is there all this traffic? This traffic is messing up my plans and ruining my day. In that tiny thought, you are resisting reality, getting yourself riled up, and placing yourself as a victim to the traffic. The more you dwell on that thought, the more stressed you become and the more energy you leak. The way to plug these resistance leaks is to develop a mind that's flexible enough to almost automatically look at your current reality and look at your thoughts about your current reality from more than just one perspective. Because if you can see and consider your reality from multiple perspectives, then you can choose the perspective that makes you feel better, or calmer, or more compassionate, or more empowered. And the better, calmer, more compassionate, more empowered that you feel, the less energy you leak. Once again, my definition of mental flexibility is the ability to consider events and other people's actions and reactions from different perspectives so that you can find common ground. What's so special about finding common ground? Well, when you are feeling like a victim, if you can, within yourself, find some sort of common ground with the person who you feel is hurting or angering you, then you two become equal in your mind. And if you two are equal in your mind, you can no longer identify as powerless in that situation. Common ground is the level above victimhood. And if you can lift yourself to the level of common ground, then you can lift yourself to the level above that, which is empowerment. But usually making the shift from victimhood to empowered is too big of an adjustment to make in one leap. So the middle ground of that transition is finding common ground. And finding this common ground is not something you're doing in dialogue with the other person. No, this is something you're doing inside yourself, internally with your own thoughts. You never have to say anything to the other person. In fact, not one circumstance in your current reality needs to change in order for you to change your thoughts and thus your feelings about your current reality. The amazing truth is that you can change the texture of your relationship with someone without that other person doing or changing anything at all. I've experienced this with some of the most major relationships in my life, and I have seen clients experience it again and again with relationships in their life. And let me state for the record that finding common ground is not about condoning someone's actions or forgiving them. Acceptance or forgiveness is not the point. The point is plugging your energy leaks. Finding common ground is about making a compassionate acknowledgement that given the right circumstances, even if those circumstances are far-fetched, we as humans are all fundamentally capable of doing all things. Common ground is about making the compassionate acknowledgement that in the moment, we usually don't have the full story and thus cannot truly know the other person's intentions or their extenuating circumstances. And please keep in mind, I am not suggesting you develop the habit of making compassionate acknowledgments because I want more people wearing rose-colored glasses and spreading flowers and rainbows throughout the world. No, I am focused on the fact that being compassionate takes less energy than being angry or stressed. Switching a stressful thought into a compassionate thought is simply a very quick way to dissolve the stress. Compassion is a very effective way to conserve your energy. In the beginning of this process, if you can't quite muster compassion, then shoot for pity. If you can't quite feel compassionate for someone, then at least feel sorry for them, for how tortured they obviously are by the thoughts they're thinking. Even a detached sense of pity uses less energy than nursing anger and resentment and bitterness and victimhood. Now you know that your two biggest mental energy leaks are your reactions to events and people and your resistance to reality. And you know that plugging those leaks requires energetic detachment and the mental flexibility to examine your thoughts. In our final video, I will introduce you to some worksheets and some tools that will help you build strength in those two areas.